What's going on, guys? We're Visual Excellence, and this is going to be our first video. We're a detailing company based out of Central New Jersey, and today we're going to be teaching you guys how to restore some old foggy headlights. So here we got these headlights off of an E36 BMW, and as you can see, they're very oxidized, very scratched up, yellowing, and it just really takes away from the overall look of the car. So we're going to be showing you guys how to clear these up and get them looking as close to new as possible, if not better than brand new. And so we'll start off by going through some of the products that we're going to be using.
Alright, so first off we're going to start with, usually we clean up the headlights a little bit, give it a nice clay bar to get all this surface, surface like salt, for example, like you see this is coming off, and just clean them up a little bit before we get the products going. And then we're going to start with the 800 grit sandpaper, which is a sanding disc, and we're going to cut them down to size so they can fit on our Griot's Garage 3-inch random orbital polisher. And then as we sand the headlights, we're going to move up in grits. Then as they go up, they go softer and softer to clear up any of the hazing and stuff. And after the hazing, we're going to move on to using these pads with our polisher. And this is our orange compounding pad, this is our black polishing pad, and then this is our red wax pad. For the orange pad, we're going to be using Chemical Guys V34 optical grade hybrid compound. And then we're going to move on to our black pad, which will be using the optical grade final polish V38, also from Chemical Guys. And then we're going to move on to the butter wet wax, also from Chemical Guys.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and we'll get these pads cut to size, and then we'll see you guys in a minute and we'll get started. Alright guys, so we just got our pads cut, our sanding pads cut down to size. One thing that with these pads is that since we're using the Griot's Garage polisher, it has a hook and loop system, and so we bought the sandpaper that has the hook and loop system, so it's easy to just slap it right on there. You don't need any other attachments. You could also sand them by hand too, but we're going to be using this. If you were doing it by hand, you don't need the hook and loop sandpaper, and you would use some type of thing like this. You just wrap the sandpaper around it, and then you would just do it manually. We're going to use the polisher just so we can get it done a little bit quicker. So before we get started, the first thing we're going to want to do is use a clay bar to clean off the surface of the headlights. Now, we forgot to mention these materials in the beginning. You're going to need a clay bar. You can get these from AutoZone, Pep Boys, really anywhere that sells car parts or any type of cleaning solutions. And normally that'll come with some detail spray that we're going to use as a lubricant for the clay bar, and also for the sandpaper when we wet sand it. We're also going to need a couple microfibers. Alright, so we got our clay bar opened up. That's what it looks like. And basically what this is going to do, this is just going to pull off any contamination that's on the headlights, anything that's on there that's really got to come off before we go and sand it, because we don't want to scratch that into the paint. So this is pretty big, and these clay bars can get pretty expensive, anywhere from like 20 bucks or maybe two bars of these. So what we're going to do is we're just going to break this in half, because we don't need the whole thing, and we're going to save the other half for a different usage. So we put that down right there, and start claying the headlights.
Alright guys, now typically when you're going to clay the car and you break the clay bar in half, you're going to use a piece like this, and you're going to want to sort of knead it to make it a flat sort of piece of putty, I guess you would say, and that gives you a bigger surface area to work with. And while you're claying the headlights, you're going to want to make sure the surface is nice and wet, as well as the clay bar.
Now we're using the detail spray. You could also use water if you don't have detail spray, soapy water, or just regular water. But detail spray does work the best, so that is highly recommended.
Now when you're claying, as far as a headlight goes, it doesn't matter too much as the way, like if you're going back and forth or making circles, it doesn't matter too much. Paint, you're going to want to take a little more care, but like I said, it's only plastic headlights, so it's not a huge deal. But basically you just want to sort of rub it until you can't hear it anymore. Obviously, you're gonna want to look up close, see any imperfections or whatever, but see how the clay bar is getting dirty? That means it's working. As you can see by this clay bar, the headlights are fairly dirty, and when you're working with the clay bar, after it gets to a certain point where you think it's not necessarily what you would want to work with anymore, you just need it, and then you get a cleaner surface to continue your claying.
Alright, once you're done claying the headlights, just going to take one of your microfiber towels and just wipe it off. Just get it nice and dry, wipe all that dirt off and all that extra detail spray. Dry the table a little bit. Now the next step in the headlight restoration is going to be the first step of the wet sanding. So we're going to start off with the 800 grit. The 800 grit right here. And now the whole reason headlights get oxidized is because it's basically the protection from the factory failing. So what you have to do is sand all that off, and then once you sand it off, you could refine it, polish it out, and then they're going to look brand new. So let's get started. So I'm just going to apply my sanding pad onto there. And now when you first start the wet sanding, you don't want to use a lot of spray, but you definitely want to get the sanding pad wet. You want to get the headlight nice and wet. So I'm just going to start going ahead and just sanding the headlight. And start slow and just slowly work the speed up. As we sand the headlights, you're going to see you're going to get this milky, yellowy residue on there, and that's a good thing. That means that you're sanding off all that hazing on there and all that oxidation. So I don't know if you could see that, but when you're getting that, that's a good sign. That's what you want. If you're not getting that, it means it's not really doing anything. Alright, so we're going to spray some more spray on there and keep going. Now we're going to hit the edges of the headlights. If you're able to take the headlights off the car, it's definitely something you're going to want to do. If they're on the car, it might be a little harder to get this area, but since we're able to, we're definitely going to get it. Alright, so let you guys see how that's coming out. Nice and milky. All that milky residue, that's exactly what we're looking for. Alright, so we got the initial sanding done. Did the 800 grit on the whole headlight. So now we're just gonna spray it and just use our microfiber to just wipe off all that residue that got built up, and we're gonna see how it looks.
As you can see, the headlight is starting to haze up, but a lot of the yellowing is starting to disappear. And that's exactly what you want.
So now we're going to go ahead and just hit it one more time with the 800 because it looks good, but there's still a little bit of yellowing. You can still see that it's not fully hazed. You want to get it fully hazed up because that means that you sand it all the way through the factory coating that's failing. So we're just going to go over the face of them one more time. I'm going to try to emphasize in areas that we maybe see some yellowing or where it's not hazing. But you know, you're just going to go over it and then just we'll check it out again. So now as you can see, we're still getting a lot of that yellowness coming up. So basically you want to just keep hitting it with the 800 until it stops becoming yellow. See, it's a little yellow there around the edges. Once it starts coming up clear or white, then you can move on to the next grip. But we're going to keep hitting it until it completely stops being yellow. As you can see, they're starting to haze up a lot more now.
Good lighting is very important for this because as you can see from here, it looks for the most part clear, but if you get the right angles, you can see that there's still yellowing, like for example up here in the corner and pretty much along the headlight still.
So now we're at a point, we're not really getting any yellow anymore as we're sanding. We're pretty much just getting, it's all white, which means you sanded away all the yellow oxidation and now you're just sanding the plastic of the headlights, which is a good thing. So now we're gonna wipe this off yet again. Now you can see the headlight's pretty much completely hazed, but it's very even throughout. There's no more yellowing, there's not really any scratches. Looking much better. So next step, we're going to hit it with the next grit sandpaper and we'll see you then. Alright guys, so now we got the headlight fully sanded down with 800. Now we're going to move on to 1500 grit and then do the same process. So we're going to do the 1500 grit, then we're going to do the 2000 grit, then we're going to do the 3000 grit, and we'll speed that up for you guys. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit it with P2000. Now when you're using the higher grit sandpapers, especially with the 1500, you should still be seeing a little bit of that white milky residue coming up. It shouldn't be yellow. If it's yellow, you should go back to the 800. That means you didn't get the full layer of oxidation off. So if it's yellow, you want to go back to the 800. If it's still coming up white, then you're good to move on. So now we're going to move on to the 2000. Alright, so now we're going to be moving on to the 3000 grit disc. You notice this one's going to be a little different. Depending on what kind you have, this one has a cushion in between. And what that does is it puts more space in between the sanding pad and the machine that you're going to be using. So that just makes it a little bit softer on the headlights. So it's going to really make a lot of fine scratches that are going to clear up all the rest of the scratches that we made with the 800, 1500, and the 2000. So this is just going to dial it in. We're going to get some nice hazing out of this, and then after this we're going to go ahead and compound and polish them and bring the shine back. Alright, so now as you can see, the headlights are hazed up a bit, but they're way clearer than when we started. Here's the one we didn't do yet. I'll just show you guys just for comparison what it used to look like. And then this is the one that's just been sanded down. So now you can see, if you look at it, it's still a little bit cloudy. And what that is, that's all the fine scratches created from the 3000. And the way we're going to get rid of that is with some compound and polish, which we'll show you in the next step. Alright, so for the next step, we're going to be clearing up the haze. And they look pretty good already compared to the other ones. But now we're just going to refine it. We're going to bring the shine back. We're going to get them nice and clear. Going to get them looking as close as possible as to when they first came brand new on the car. So we're going to be using for that, so we're going to be using the same polisher that we were just using for the sanding. That's why this is great. You can use it for sanding, compounding, polishing, you know, there's a lot of different uses for it. Great tool. So we're going to be using for that, as we showed in the beginning of the video. First is the V34 optical grade hybrid compound by Chemical Guys. It's not too abrasive, but it's also going to give us a nice cut, so that way we can make sure we get rid of that hazing in there. After that, we're going to follow that up with some V38. This is an optical grade polish, and so this is going to clear up the fine scratches that are made by this and bring us even more shine. And then to protect them, we're going to use some Chemical Guys Butter Wet Wax, and this is going to add some nice gloss, some nice shine, and protect the headlights. And the pads we're going to be using the orange pad. This is the most abrasive one. We're going to be using this one for compounding. Black pad for the polishing. This one's a lot softer. And then the red pad for the waxing. This one's even softer than the black one. So first what we're going to want to do is get our pad, apply it onto the polisher. Give it one little spritz of our detail spray just to get a little moisturized. You don't want a lot, just one little spritz. Alright, we're just going to add a couple dots of the V34 on there. We're just going to dab it onto the headlight, get it distributed all the way throughout, because we're going to do the whole face of the headlight in one shot. So now, you could still do this by hand. If you're doing this by hand, I'll show you what kind of tool you want to use for that. You want to use, you could use a microfiber, but if you get one of these applicator pads, you can use them for polishing manually, compounding, and even applying the wax. But again, just to save time, we're going to be using the polisher. It does provide a better result as well, but if you don't have access to a tool like this, then you know, something like this or even just a regular microfiber will do the job just fine. It's just going to be a little more elbow grease. So now we're going to start off on the lowest speed, and we're going to slowly work our way up. First we're going to get it moved, we're just going to get it applied throughout the headlight, and then we're going to speed it up, and then we're going to actually start cutting into the headlight. Alright, so now we're just going to wipe off that compound with one of our microfibers. And now what a difference it made just by the 34, as you can see. That was just one shot going over the whole headlight. Could do it again if you want, but this one's looking pretty good, so I think we're going to go straight to the 38. So I'll show you up close real quick. You can see it's looking really good. All that hazing from before is gone. But still a little bit of hazing if you look at it up close. You know, nothing major, but it's definitely a little bit. And we're going to get that cleared up with the V38. And it's going to be right here. Going to be using our black pad.
As you can see, there are very little scratches. All of the hazing is gone. And that's looking like a brand new headlight.
Alright, Alright, so now we just did all this work to restore this headlight. Now we're going to want to protect that for as long as possible, so the least we could do is add a coat of wax. And that's going to be our butter wet wax. And so again, what that's going to do is that's just going to add some protection on there. It's going to add some extra shine. It's also going to fill in all the little scratches that we weren't able to get out. So now we're going to take the red pad, put it on our buffer. And now with this one, we're not going to use any of the detail spray. We're not going to spritz it like we did the other ones. It's going to go straight to the wax. So we're going to apply a little bit on there. Now it's going to be just like we did with the compound and the polish. We're just going to dab it onto the headlight. Then we're going to put this on a low setting. We're not going to speed this up at all. We're going to keep it on a low setting. We're just going to go over it real quick. Just get a nice even application, nice even coat on the headlight. Alright, so now we got the wax applied onto the front of the headlight. And now you may not be able to see it too well right now, but once it dries, it's going to haze up, and then that's how you're going to know that it's done. So we're going to give it a couple minutes to dry, but before we do that, we're just going to apply some wax onto the edges all around here. And now this is a little bit hard to control in those small, hard to reach areas. So I'm just going to use one of those application pads like we showed you earlier to get the edges. Now you're going to try to avoid getting it on any of these black plastics, because once it dries, if you don't get it off, it's going to turn white, or it might turn yellow, whatever color the wax is, and it just doesn't look good. So you want to try to avoid that. So we're just going to apply a little bit onto our application pad. This is a microfiber application pad. You can use any type of wax application pad, doesn't really matter, but this is what we got here, so this is what we're going to use. You don't need a lot either. So now we're just going to try to very precisely just get a nice coat along the edges. Alright, so now we got the headlight fully waxed. Nice even coat all throughout. We're going to wait for it to dry. And then once the wax is dried, we'll wipe it off. And that's going to be our finished product. So we'll give that a couple minutes and we'll be right back.
Alright, so we got the wax applied, and now what you're going to want to do is, to be able to tell that the wax is ready to be taken off, you can see how there's a light haze on it, and if you run your finger through it and the haze comes off, that means your wax is ready to go. Alright, so let's wipe that off. And there you go. Headlight is looking brand new.
Alright guys, so I'll show you a little comparison real quick of what the one looks like before it's restored compared to the freshly restored one. So obviously this is the freshly restored one, and right here we have the one that hasn't been worked on yet. We're going to get this one done right now off camera. But as you can see, it's a huge difference. So if you look at this one up close, you know, it's hazy, oxidized, dirty, scratched up, you know, you name it, it's bad. No one wants to drive around looking like this. It just takes it away from the look of the car so much. And so, you know, we'll just take another look at this one. It's, you know, that's like a brand new headlight right there. You know, new set of headlights might cost you a couple $100. Something like this is going to cost you a lot less. You know, you do it yourself. You know, you go to Pep Boys, buy some of the products. You don't necessarily have to use all the same brands that we used, but you know, any compound, polish, and you know, sandpaper is going to do the job. So put a little side by side so you can see it. And you know, if you made it this far, guys, just want to thank you guys for watching the video. We're going to be putting up a lot more content like this, a lot more tutorials, you know, how-tos, maybe just some full detail videos. You know, if you guys liked it, please subscribe, like the video, shoot us a comment, let us know what you like, what you didn't like, what kind of videos you want to see in the future, and you know, we'll do what we can to give you guys what you want to see.
And if you're lucky enough to be located near us in the tri-state area, you can check us out on our website, which will be in the description. And thank you.